Parents, it's Mr. Sunny with the MBU Role Models podcast, and today we have a very special guest on with us. Her name is Avanti Nagral, and she is an international pop artist. She's the first person to pursue a dual degree between Harvard and Berklee College of Music. She's a youth icon, and she really speaks to youth about finding their voice and empowering themselves. She's spoken at TEDx conferences. She speaks to youth about connecting passion and purpose and how to balance being a student, an entrepreneur, and a really great musician because I've been listening to her stuff all morning and it's really awesome. Um, in 2013, she founded YCPR, which is a youth cardiopulmonary resuscitation campaign to empower youth to help save lives in their own communities. And she recently founded Golden Milk Media, which is a socially responsible digital entertainment startup which focuses on social norms and Generation Z. And the most impressive part about everything is that how you're able to just do all of this stuff. Like you have this Golden Media company that you just started. You're an international pop artist, and at the same time, you're balancing one of the toughest universities in the world, and that is one of the most amazing parts. And you're only 21, and I think it's mind blowing, and I think you're the perfect role model to be on this Role Models podcast, and also be someone that these kids can really look up to. So thank you so much for being on this podcast. I know that I'm going to learn a lot from this. I know that the kids are going to learn a lot and the parents are going to learn a lot as well. So thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you for having me. My pleasure. And kudos to all the work that you do, Mr. Sunny. I think it's absolutely incredible. And hello to anybody watching. Thank you for tuning in. And yeah, I hope anything that I share, I'm super accessible via email and social media, so I can share some of that at the end. And
Yeah.
super happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
Yeah. So Avanti, tell me about how you got started doing what you're doing now. Like there's so many different components. Like I said, you go to Harvard. You're the first person to do this dual degree program in music with Berklee and Harvard. You're an entrepreneur. You have this media company. You have all these great things going on. How did you initially get started in all of this?
Well, I think that there's, I don't think there was any set path, and I don't think anybody has any set path, right? Steve Jobs once said this quote. I'm paraphrasing, but essentially this idea that everything that you do in life is like dots on a wall,
Mm,
and you don't really know how they're going to join together, but you do what you do, and suddenly you'll see like a path through them. And so for me, I think I the core has always been music and impact in some capacity.
mm.
For me, my music journey started, I literally joke about this all the time, but I'm not kidding. It started in utero when I was still, in my mom's uterus. And the reason for that is my dad is a tabla player. He plays the Indian drums, in addition to being a tech entrepreneur and executive.
Yeah.
And so he used to play a lot. My mom's pretty spiritual, kind of no matter what, faith-based background you might come from, or if you don't, that's okay. You might have heard of, what it's like to sing in church or sing at a synagogue, or similarly I grew up with the Hindu faith tradition, so we would sing a lot of devotional music.
Right.
And so that was kind of my start into the journey. And I then did a lot of training and background in Indian classical music. I played the piano and did a lot of stuff in music in that capacity. I can share more about how that journey grew.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I think was really key in, like you said, all these multiple things that I do, so to speak,
Yeah.
is when I was about 8. So I grew up in Boston in a town called Shrewsbury. And when I was about 8 years old, my family and I moved to India. And that was a really, really eye-opening experience. I am, of course, Indian, and I had gone every summer to visit my grandparents. However, I think moving to a place in the capacity of being a young child, a tourist almost, you get to see a lot of things with fresh eyes, which you don't necessarily see if it's in your own backyard. And, I don't think it takes worldwide travel or moving to a totally different country to do that. I think it just takes keeping your eyes open to things going on around you.
Mm.
And I was really grateful that I was that young and, my parents decided to make the move at that point, because at 8, you're really annoying and you ask a lot of questions. And so I remember asking a lot of questions about why I could see extreme wealth and extreme poverty just next to each other all around me. And why, there were certain privileges that I had, which there were a lot of children around me who didn't have. And I think those questions were good starting points and seeds for me to understand my privilege and place in this world, and also understand that I felt a duty and responsibility to give back in some capacity. And I think that that's true for anybody and everybody. We all have some kind of privilege, whether that can be money for some, that can be resources for some others, that can just be family support for some, that can be so many different things, right? And I think that a lot of people, a lot of people think privilege is a bad word, or it's a word that you should avoid. But I think that we all come with these, what I like to call the X factor, right? The support system in whatever way that it is, whether it's your parents, your friends, your teachers, your mentors, whoever it might be, and use it, acknowledge it, use it, and only then can you grow from it, and only then can you kind of think about that. So the reason I bring these two kind of pivotal points up is because the way that I like to think about what I'm doing, no matter what it is to me, I believe in the power of the voice, and I hope that my life's mission is around using it in its literal and metaphorical capacities, of course, as a singer, songwriter, and artist, as well as a speaker, but also in the impact that I can have with the platform that I'm afforded, and so many different things. And all of that's just to say everyone has their own sense of passion, and everyone has their own sense of purpose. They might be for the same thing. They might also not be for the same thing. Like you may love playing video games. You may love whatever that is, whatever you have a passion for it. The way I like to look at passion is if you woke up tomorrow and you didn't have anything to do, what's the one thing you would want to do the whole day? Or what's that thing that would make you happy? That is part of your passion. And, it's okay if you don't know what that is right now, but keep discovering it. Keep discovering what makes you happy, because only then are you going to feel like you're doing work in a way that's not really work. I was talking to Mr. Sunny earlier, and he was saying that he feels the same way every day about what he does, which is absolutely incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. I really like what you said about finding your voice. And so I love doing this. This is what I do. I love teaching kids. I love hanging out with my students when I'm like today, there's no kids here and I feel kind of lost and a little empty inside because I don't get to today, but I know I'm going to see him later on this week. And I think a major challenge that I've seen between between students and parents, and even in my life growing up, is that like you always have to pick something that makes you money, right? Like
Yeah,
especially within our culture, like that whole monetary gain, like growing and getting ahead is like a very constant process, and it's like
of course.
always something that's there. And the challenges that I see within our students is that they love so many things. Like we have so many kids that love video games. We have so many kids that love to sing. We have so many students
Yeah,
that love to play instruments. I just went to like 8 spring concerts 2 weeks ago.
that's
And it was
incredible.
just it was amazing to see these kids truly be themselves. Like when you see a child singing or playing an instrument or doing something that they really love doing, playing basketball or soccer or whatever it
Yeah,
is, and you see them open up as a person. It's not just about the math and the English, and it's not just
no, of
about
course.
like school. It's about really becoming your true self. And I think a lot of parents have challenges with that. Is that I don't know if it's like exactly accepting their children for who they are, but more so like, okay, like you need to make sure that you're doing this in order to do this. Like, do you think it's more of like they're side by side, that you should focus on these core concepts and then also focus on that? Or is it like, all right, singing's your hobby, like you could just do that as a hobby, but
Sure.
focus on becoming a doctor first?
I think, no, I appreciate you bringing that up, because I've talked to so many parents who say that. Um, I think one thing that, of course, and I understand that because my own parents are immigrants, that's part of the
Yeah,
immigrant mentality, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
you need to work to survive, and it's all
yes,
of that. However, again, that's when I come back to privilege. We, as children of immigrants, or even if we moved to this country or wherever when we were really young, don't have the same exact struggles that our parents had, right?
yeah,
And with that comes a privilege of not having to go through the same exact pattern that they did, and a privilege of really being able to make out of your career what it is that you love doing. Which isn't to say that your parents don't love doing what they're doing, right? Some of them do, some of them may not.
Yeah.
Um, and so there's a few things. One is we were talking about this earlier. Every, in my opinion, every 5 to 7 years is a new generation. I have a younger brother. He's 4 years younger than me, and it sometimes feels like we're totally different generations.
Yeah.
And part of that is because there's new things being created every single day, right? The importance of social media has only kind of hyped up in the last 5 to 7 years, but there's new jobs being created every single day in that capacity.
Yeah.
There's so many different things. So while I understand as a parent, it might be scary to say, my kid loves basketball, but they're never going to be a pro basketball player. They're never going to be the next Michael Jordan. Like,
Yeah.
that's just not going to be a thing. That's okay. Maybe they will, and
Yeah.
maybe they won't, and that's okay. I think cultivating that passion is really important because that can always be monetized. Things can always be monetized. For example, let's take the basketball example, right? Let's
Yeah.
say you have a huge passion for basketball, you play it all throughout school, maybe even in college, but you kind of decide, okay, I don't necessarily want to go pro, or you have an injury, God forbid, something in your life. But why would you still want to go away from basketball? Right? If you have a few other skills, let's say you also learn some things related to statistics, you also learn some things related to business. You can always get into sports management, you can always get into sports analytics, you can always do something that is related to the thing that you enjoy and you love.
Yeah.
And that can still also make you money if that's something that's a concern.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we all would like to make money, which isn't to say that we don't, but I think that if you chase money first, you will never be happy. I never understood this. A lot of close mentors in my life used to tell me, do what you love and the money will follow.
Yeah.
And I still find that hard to believe, right? Because as
Yeah.
an artist today, it's very difficult, right, for the money to casually just follow. But
Yeah.
I have that core belief that if I really do what I love and if I put in the effort,
Yeah.
it's not just saying, oh, I love, basketball and I'm just going to play it, but I'm not going to put
Yeah.
in the effort. You
Yeah.
put in the effort, it'll manifest itself into something, and doors will open in ways that you never thought were possible before.
Yeah. Yeah. So like on this example, because so I have a friend of mine who went through this like exactly what you said. So he loved basketball growing up, and
That's hilarious.
I'm also like 6'4", and he was also my height, and we would play basketball together all the time. And
Yeah.
we were went through high school playing basketball together. He went off into college and he had a crazy injury, like playing
Oh,
basketball.
wow.
And he was out. Like he wanted to play basketball. He really wanted to do this, and then he couldn't play anymore. And that was the one thing that really brought him an immense amount of joy and happiness. Like when he
Of
wasn't
course.
playing basketball and involved in that sport, there was something missing from his life. The other thing he really enjoyed was photography and taking pictures and videos and stuff like that. And now he has it's a media based company, but they take like photography and they do sports photography, and
That's incredible.
they do it for the NBA, they do it for different football players, they do all these like media ops and pictures for these players, and he loves it. Like he's still part of that environment. He's
Yeah.
monetizing on his passion, and he's loving it every single day, and like that's the most important part. That
Which is so incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and
I
I'm
mean,
so happy that you said that because like
yeah.
yeah,
Hey, real life story, right? Don't
yeah,
believe me. Believe
I
Mr.
know.
Sunny. But I do want to mention, I don't think it's right to even prioritize or say passion can only be for sports or music or arts or anything. You can have a
Yeah.
passion for science. You can have a passion for math.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely
yeah. Yeah,
anything,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Whatever it is, cooking, like
Yeah.
whatever it might be, find those things that make you happy, and not make your parents happy. Sorry, parents. And not make your siblings or your teachers. What makes you happy? Because you're your own person. You're going to
Yeah.
have to live your life, right?
Yeah.
And I have so many friends, for example, who are great athletes, but were forced into the sport by their parents.
Yeah.
And, again, chasing competition, didn't end up really loving it.
Yeah.
Um, Whatever it is that you love, because today's world, there's just so many resources at our fingertips. We want to know anything in the world, literally anything. You can Google it, which is
Yeah.
just crazy. That did not exist when our parents were around, and that
Yeah.
is a fact that we should acknowledge. I mean, by the time I maybe have children, right? Who knows? There'll be robots around like I don't know, right?
I don't
And
know. I don't know. I don't know what
so
that's gonna
hard to
look like.
predict. And it's so I think the main thing is, of course, you have to be practical, but especially when you're this young, I don't. I hope that you don't let this practicality come in the way of dreaming big. Whenever I talk to people about like what's the first step in soaring, right? Or, creating a life of passion and purpose and whatever, finding what's meaningful to you, my first step is dream big. And people always laugh. They're like, duh.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't. A lot of people let, certain things cloud their vision. They think, even if they're 7 years old, they think, I'm never going to make it. Hey,
Yeah.
the bigger you dream, it's okay if you don't reach exactly what you dreamed for.
Yeah.
For all you know, other doors will open and you'll find something that's even more meaningful to you.
Yeah.
But there's this, I don't know who said this quote, but it's one of my favorite quotes. It's like, aim for the stars. At the very least, you'll fall among the clouds.
Les Brown. Yeah.
Right?
Shoot for the stars, and if you miss, you'll land upon, or shoot for the moon, and if you miss, you'll land upon the stars.
Exactly. And I think that it's just such a beautiful quote because if you don't dream big, you won't even know your capacity.
Yeah.
Um, and the
Yeah.
bigger you dream, the more possibilities will arise. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and I think
Absolutely.
it's so important. And it's so important to keep talking to people in your life who are your mentors. Of course, your parents may be your mentors, which is incredible. I know my parents are some of my
Yeah.
biggest mentors, but I've spent time building relationships with other people, whether they're my teachers or whether they are now in the professional world, somebody who is, you know, um, my professional mentor, whatever that might be, even if they're just people with whom I use as a sounding board or for advice or an older sibling figure. I personally am an older sibling, so I do that for a lot of people. But I think it's so important to find that because that's creating your support system. That's creating your gems, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So I know dreaming big is. I have this book here.
I love it.
Like we were talking about this, I was like, oh snap. So dreaming big, yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. Like that's the first thing that you should do. And a lot of kids do dream really big, right? I have students that tell me that they want to be professional soccer players, and we have this curriculum here that our students are writing about organizations that they want to be the founders of to help millions of people all over the world. And these are young kids that are writing some of the craziest stuff that I have ever read, and I am so proud of them.
Love it.
But I think the major part, and you touched on this like a couple minutes ago, is that the major part that's missing is the work that's behind it, right? Like
Yeah,
it's I don't want to say it's easy to dream big because it's not. I do my best to dream big, but still it's a challenge, and like overcoming that fear within yourself to be able to allow yourself to have those big dreams,
totally.
that's a tough part. But then putting in the work after it is where most people give up. And I think that is, I'm so happy that you touched on that
Yeah.
because that's what our students need to hear. That's what more kids, more parents, people need to hear as well. So like how do you stay how do you dream big as a person?
Hmm.
And then what motivates you to continue putting in the work day in and day out? Like what is that driving factor for you?
I think, and I touched upon this a little earlier, I think to me that driving factor is what I like to call purpose, right? Which
Mhm.
is this idea of what impact you want to leave on the world. That impact may be on one person, that impact may be on millions of people. It's either way, you're going to leave behind a legacy, no
Yeah.
matter what that is, right? And for me, for like a lot of musicians and artists, their purpose is to touch a lot of people through their music and all of that. And that is part of my purpose as well. But I think for me, a lot of my purpose is around global health and education. And part of that, excuse me,
Bless you.
excuse me, I'm so sorry. Always come in threes. Uh,
Hey, that's good enough.
yeah, exactly. um, I grew up, all my grandparents are doctors. One of my aunts and uncle are doctors. And so I grew up with a lot of that surrounding me. No surprise there, I'm cut from an Indian family. But and my dad trained as an engineer, and yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, you get it. But growing up, I saw a lot of that around me, and I personally had a lot of health issues myself. I was born with a hole in my heart when I was There were multiple others till I was 16 when I temporarily lost vision in one of my eyes. Fortunately, everything's back on track in all of those capacities.
Yeah.
However, I realized, again, back to privilege, right? I had access to care when a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
And even with just basic things, right? You touched upon YCPR and teaching a lot of youth citizens CPR. That's a basic life skill. It doesn't take any form of education, and you can potentially save a life, right?
Yeah.
Or I do a lot of work now in the space of mental health and sexual health. And those are really, really important things to talk about. And so for me, my purpose is, how do I, again, use my voice in a way that is affecting change? And to me, that's what gets me up every day, and that's what motivates me to put in the work, because the more work I put in toward creating my artistic background and platform, and I love music, I love being on stage. That's one of the biggest things I love in the world. But I also know that if I work hard enough, hopefully that platform, and even now as it is, right, it's a micro platform, but whatever that is, how do you use that to affect change in the way that you want to?
Yeah.
And for some people, like, both of those align on the same thing. For some people it doesn't. Whatever it is, I think it's also like Sunny mentioned, I go to Harvard, right? And there's a lot of students there who end up going into finance or end up going into something called consulting, which you might have heard of, which is wonderful, absolutely wonderful, if you're doing it for the right reasons, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But a lot of kids, what they end up doing is, those are the most accessible paths to go into when you go to schools like these, because all of them come to recruit on campus. Everybody's doing it. So a lot of people feel peer pressured.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one main thing. You're going to get a lot of peer pressure in your life. It's not going to end in high school. It's going to go throughout your life.
Yeah.
But if you at your core know who you are as a person, your values, like my values are around respect and kindness first before anything else.
Yeah.
Um, you will stay true to yourself as a person and kind of do what you want without faltering to that, right? And a lot of people, they're like, oh, my friend has I mean, you guys don't have to worry about this for a long time, hopefully, but my friend has a 9 to 5 job, and all they do is, they go to work and then they come home and they make a ton of money. And
Yeah.
I'm frustrated because I'm doing a startup, I'm doing whatever, and I'm not making that.
Every day.
And it's, again, do you look at things in the short term, or do you look at things in the long
Yeah.
term? Off for you, and I think really understanding what your purpose is, what your passion is, and it's okay to not know right now. I say I think I know this at 21, but maybe I don't, right? But I think I've been actively thinking about this for the past few years, because I think it's really important for me to have a guiding principle. And my guiding principle is the voice, right? And I've called it that. And no matter everything that I do kind of comes back to that. And it's an easy way for me to explain to other people also,
Mm-hmm.
who are always jumping down your throat. So what are you doing? And or what would you like to do in life? A lot of people like to ask you that question, but I think you trying to think about that and actively understand it is super important, and super important to talk to people about, like your parents,
Yeah.
who are hopefully your number one well wishers.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So you said a lot. And I'm really happy because that was very, very impactful, and that
Hello.
meant a lot. And like, I felt like you were talking directly to me. I mean, I know you are right now, but like, it was like, I was like, yeah, this makes sense. Like, all right, cool. Like, this is really good. I like this. This makes me feel a lot better. Um, and so like, you said something about doing things for the right reason.
Yeah.
Well, like, whatever you pick, whatever your passion is, whatever your purpose is in life, like, following that, and then like the careers that you pick as you get older in whatever line you in direction you decide to do it for the right reason. So I have a cousin of mine, and he's also like my best friend, and he is an orthopedic surgeon right now, or he's in his
Oh,
residency right now, and he's like he just got his fellowship, and he's going to be doing that next year, and
congratulations.
I'll let him know.
Yeah.
He's also going to see this, so uh, he's very successful at what he does. He's very happy with doing what he's doing, and him and I have this back and forth conversation all the time that you need to do the things that make you happy and fulfilled. And yes, he's a doctor. He's also Indian, like, and there's also a lot of other Indians, especially within our culture, that are becoming doctors for the money.
Sure.
Like working that 9 to 5, or being
Yeah.
able to just go to work, then leave all that stuff there and enjoy the money and take it home. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Of
But
course not.
the I think the real level of satisfaction and gratification comes from when you're truly connected to doing what you're doing. And he loves it. Like he's like, yeah, I'm operating. I just operated for 12 hours, 5 days in a row. And I was like, man,
Wow.
aren't you tired? He's like, man, I'm so ready to go. Like I'm ready to do this. And I was just like, geez, like that's passion. And it's making him happy. It's really connecting to him, to who he is as a person, and he's able to help so many people
Of
by
course.
doing what he's doing. And I think that's the key. So I'm really happy that you said that.
I think so. My dad used to say this to me a lot about this. I keep bringing up quotes for some reason. I'm just
That's
pulling them
good.
all out of my quote
Yeah, yeah,
library. But he used to always say, charity begins at home.
yeah,
And I never understood that. And then my mom used to keep talking about it. If you've ever been on a plane, or if you've ever like seen an advertisement for a plane, they always talk about like oxygen masks,
yes,
and they talk about helping yourself before helping another person,
yeah,
or anything in life. And I never understood that because to me, I'm like, shouldn't we always be helping other people?
yeah,
Sure, I agree totally, and that's such a noble thing to do, even if it's one person whose life you
hmm
change.
hmm
However, if you yourself are not happy and you yourself are not helping yourself, you cannot help others. If
yeah,
nothing else, your energy is going to be that of somebody who's drained, who's sapped. A lot of people talk about energy, and I'm not talking about this necessarily in a spiritual, philosophical
yeah.
way. When I
Like,
say energy, it's just like the actual energy, right? There's some people you meet and you don't know why, but you just love meeting them.
yeah,
And there's some people you meet and you're just like, I got a weird vibe from this person,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
It
And
happens
that's,
all the time.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's just about, I think if you are secure within yourself, if you try to do things and find things that make you happy, find people that make you happy,
hmm
um, you'll have a good energy, and no matter what you do, that'll take you forward. It sounds like your cousin does that already.
Oh yeah, he's killing it.
Yeah.
Like on every single level, just he's doing amazing things, helping himself, helping other people, and he's really happy. He's one of my role models. So definitely a really good person. And
Shout out
I'm
to Mr. Sunny's role model. Yeah.
yeah, Calvin Cobb, he is my role model. So I'm really so you do a lot of stuff with mental health and also a lot of global work. Can you speak to that? Like what are the things that you're doing right now?
Yeah, of course. So I do a lot of stuff in the form of research, initiative creation, and advocacy. Those are big words. What it essentially means is I work with different experts in the field or professors or folks to try to first understand exactly what the lay of the land is, what
Mhm.
is going on. Mental health is everywhere around us and it's so important for yourself.
Yeah.
But what does it really mean, right? And especially in certain populations globally, what does that mean? Has it been looked at? So I've done a lot of research in that space. And I've also done a lot of initiative creation and things like that. So one of the things that I'm doing is I'm organizing a conference on storytelling and global health this coming fall. And what we're doing with that is trying to see how can you leverage or kind of use the power of arts and entertainment and storytelling in sharing things about global health, and sharing things. When I say global health, that sounds again like sounds totally like a fancy word. What it
Mhm.
essentially means is how do you stay healthy? How do I stay healthy? And what are things? So you might have heard most of you, hopefully all of you, have taken vaccines in your life, right?
I'm sure we've all taken
Yeah.
vaccines.
And while that might be really scary for some people, what that's doing is that's protecting you against certain diseases which we don't want people to have, right? And that's important because if you are unhealthy, you're not going to be a productive person. And so
Yeah.
that's basically the unit of it, right? That's the
Yeah.
fundamental core. Similarly, when I talk about mental health, right, it's not just your body and these medicines and things that you use, but it's also how do you stay secure in yourself as a person, right? How do you give yourself time to breathe and space? And there's some people, I'm sure you've heard about certain things in the media. And that's what brings me to my second piece, which is with Golden Milk Media. It's a production startup, it's an entertainment startup, and we're working on a lot of media based things, kind of think web series, that kind of Netflix, all of that. But we're also working on essentially messaging about issues like this targeted at Gen Z. I think whoever I'm talking to right now, except the parents, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
we're all Gen Z because Gen
Yeah.
Z starts in 1997, which is my birth year. which I know also makes me sound old. But
May, because I'm not in that generation. So
exactly. But yeah, no, I think it's super important. Just all these conversations and anything that I talk about in this space, right? Like, why is education important? Because it's making you a better equipped citizen to help other people and just to be knowledgeable yourself, right? All
yeah,
of these things are helping you. And it's as simple as you see a friend who's sad, ask them how they're doing. Sometimes it just takes that one person. Or you're sad, try to understand why you're sad. Talk to people about it, right? There's no shame in talking to somebody about feeling sad or feeling down or just feeling like you're not yourself.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, so for a lot of the work that I do around that is in that capacity. Also, with my music, we're trying to do certain things in terms of the messaging of the music, and just talking about it. I think the more you talk about it, no matter how small your platform is, like your platform might be your parents, your
yeah,
platform might be your family.
yeah,
Start somewhere, right? And talk about things that are important to you, about issues that are important to you. And it's another thing. I'm just bringing out all the quotes my mom used to tell me. She's like, it's on the younger generation to bridge the gap between the older generation. And I never understood that. Um, but I think it's super true, right? There's a lot of things that my parents say that will not be um, will not be considered like okay in today's political environment, or will not be or just things they didn't understand, right? They did not see a lot of different types of love when they were growing up.
yeah,
They did not see a lot of people in the LGBTQ plus population, right? They didn't see a lot of different things. So it's I think the onus is on me to help educate them and help them understand what
yeah,
different things are, right?
yeah. So how can, sorry, how can these students be a part of your life?
Well, I would love it if you checked out my music firstly and tell me what
Wait,
you
wait.
think honestly.
Okay, so I forgot before I get there.
Yeah, of course.
So I was watching your music video. Thank You Please, the one that it like came out recently, right?
Yeah.
That's your last one, right?
Yeah.
And like I was telling Avanti before that I was driving back. I had an hour long trip today, and I was just listening to your music, and I was like, wow, I really like it. You have a very nice voice. It's very pretty.
Thank you.
Um, and I think when I sat down and I was watching the music video, what I really liked about it was that it was positive, right? A lot of the stuff that's out there right now that kids are watching, especially like these music videos and
Yeah.
everything, not to put down other artists or anything like that, but it's very scandalous and provocative. And there's a lot of imaging in there that I feel that kids just shouldn't be watching or seeing. And I was watching yours and I was like, wow, this reminds me of when I was younger, my whole family, well, my mom, my dad, my sister, myself, my grandmother, and then a couple other family members, we would get together and watch Indian movies together, right? And
Yeah,
Bollywood movies like Kuch Kuch Hota Hai or like all those other classic Indian movies, and we'd watch them,
of
and it was
course.
a wholesome experience. Like we were able to like bond and spend time together and like laugh at all there's like little corny jokes and stuff. And then they started kissing in Indian movies, and I was like, oh, I'm done. Like I'm out. Like I'm not doing this anymore. And when I was watching your music video, it kind of brought me back to that like good old times type of feeling where it was just like clean music. You know,
Mm,
it was clean, impactful, positive, meaningful music.
thank
And
you.
and that's what I really appreciate about your music and what you're doing is that like, you're also one person. You're not this Avanti girl here, and then like you go like some crazy person doing some like stuff you're not supposed to be doing. But you're true and authentic to who you are, and it shows in your music, and it shows in your global health initiatives, and it shows in all the companies that you're beginning to create and all the media that you're putting out. And I think that is such a huge thing to be true and authentic to who you are. So you're doing really great at that.
Oh, thank you. So, thank you, please. I appreciate that. And I mean, I agree with everything we've been talking about is just being authentic to yourself and whatever it is that you love to do, do it. Think
Yeah,
about it. Put in the work. When we and again, when you talked about how can people,
yeah,
how can I
that-
connect with everyone, and how can I be of help?
yeah,
I'm always there as a resource, so I can share my email with Mr. Sunny, or even on this podcast if you would like. And you can reach out to me if you're old enough to have social media on the social media platforms. Again, I'm super accessible, and I was very lucky to have some older people in my life when I was your age, and to me, it's really important to give back in that same way. And so, yeah, and in terms of, I'd love it if you guys checked out my music. Let me know what you think, like honest feedback, opinions, whatever.
I'm gonna send all your music out to everybody. I'm gonna put it in an email.
I love it. Thank you. Also, feel free to reach out to me. If you guys like watching music, most of my shows are family friendly. So whenever we have shows in your area, we can let you know if you want to come out and support. And if you want to talk about any of the issues we talked about today, we can totally do that as well. If you guys are doing anything in public speaking or whatever, I do a lot of work in that space, so I'm super happy to help out.
Public speaking stuff, so I think
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So honestly, anyway, the one thing I cannot do is I am not super great at football, but other than that, hopefully I can help you out or point you in the direction to people who can help you out.
Yeah, definitely. I think most of our students play tennis and basketball, but or in soccer, that too. So as long as you can pick a ball down a field, I think you're good with that.
Perfect.
So I have one last question for you.
Yes.
And I want you to think about this one. So, and then also answer it too. But
sitting here thinking,
so imagine you're 99 years old, and like you're on your deathbed. Like you've lived a very long, fulfilling, gratifying, satisfying life, and you've accomplished everything that you've dreamed big to accomplish.
Yes.
And you are going to pass away now. And the catch is that when you pass away, everything that you've done, like the shows that you've done, your Netflix series when you put them out, or your YouTube videos and your Spotify playlist, any awards you've won, any change that you've made in the world is just gone. Like when you're gone, all that stuff's gone.
Gone. Yeah.
And you have one truth that you're able to pass on to the next generation.
Yeah.
What would that truth be?
Can I pull out a quote from my quote hat?
Yeah.
So there's a quote by Maya Angelou, who, if you don't know who she is, definitely check her out, that I love. And again, I'm paraphrasing. People will forget what you did, people will forget what you said, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I think that is the most important thing. We are a human race in it all together. And if you can pass on that kindness, no matter what it is, like you can win 10,000 Grammys and Emmys and Tonys and be a Nobel Prize winning scientist, whatever it is. But if you're not a kind person, I don't think that's a legacy worth leaving.
Okay, two things about that. First thing is that quote went exactly like that. Was like if I were to type in my question into Google and then type for that, like you answered that perfectly. So that was
I love it.
First of all, great. Like that line by line lined up to what I said. And second thing is that you need to be a kind person first. It doesn't matter what you do with your life. You can be the president of the United States, or you can be a doctor, or whatever you want to be. Like whatever it ends up being, you have to be a kind person. And like we live in an incredibly social world, and it's not just about social media. It's just we as humans are social animals. That's why solitary confinement is the worst punishment for anybody to be a part of. We need to be around people, and we need to be more kind to people. And when you're kind to people, not only like do you feel great doing it, but pass that love on to other
people. It's that energy we were talking about earlier, right? And a lot of that comes from kindness.
Yes, absolutely agreed. Well, Avanti, thank you so much for being on the Role Models podcast. I really enjoyed this one. It was a really great one. I know that we talked about a lot in this podcast. I know that it's going to be very, very meaningful for all of our students, all of our parents, and everybody that we share this with. And I'm so happy that you're doing such great things in the world. Like you are a baby. Like you're so
Baby.
not like literally, but
Not compared to the kids watching this, though.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
So
old.
you're not compared to them, no. But like you're so young and you're accomplishing so much with your life. You're changing so many people's lives through your voice and your own confidence to follow your dreams. And I think that's the major thing that you're doing. And it's such a revolutionary concept and the platform that you've created to share your own soul speak with. Um, is really amazing to see. So I think you're doing a really great job, and
Thank you,
thank you for being
please.
on the Role Models podcast. And I really look forward to working with you in the future
Yes,
and
definitely.
having these kids be a part of your life because you're an excellent role model.
Totally. And I said I would give my email, so I will.
Oh yeah,
My name is Avanti, spelled Avanti. My last name is Nagral, spelled Nagral. So it's Avanti, at gmail.com. Super simple.
super simple.
Yeah, exactly.
Best. All right, cool. So her Gmail address is avantinagral@gmail.com. There's no spaces, there's no underscores, there's nothing. It's just her first name, last name @gmail.com. So you guys can reach out to her. Avanti, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciated it.
Nice. Thank you so much for having me. And you were awesome, and you guys have an incredible mentor.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks. I just it's still recording, but actually I'm just gonna
That's
stop.
okay.